Radio, your weekly summation of the precious metals markets. We focus each week on what's happening in the markets related to the metals and the fundamentals that move those markets. And it's great to have Robert back this week. We're going to jump right into gold and silver and platinum and palladium. And again, we'll start with technicals, but we'll address fundamentals as well.
It's great to be back, Dory. Thank you.
About the only action this week that's been of note has really been in the currency markets, and we've seen the metals move. But based on a flat week, Robert, you want to recap a little bit?
Within 1 minute in the gold market, there were 1.8 million ounces sold. What does that mean, Miles? Is that a bear raid?
Yes.
Is there anything else to say there, Tori?
Well, I think what the key is that it did rebound immediately, came right back. And so we're still seeing some strong bullish strength in the physical metals. But we mentioned on the show a few weeks ago that you see that on an annual basis. And now here we are. This has happened 3 times this year. They clearly are concerned with gold getting away from them.
Yeah, we did talk about that a couple weeks ago. We sort of went through the anatomy of what a bear raid looks like. And while it rebounded up, that is the whole point of these raids, is to take the price down to a level where you probably have a lot of standing orders. In this case, you obviously did. Silver did the same thing, 6.5% drop and 6.5% rise in less than a minute.
Manipulation.
Absolutely. Gold's still holding that 200-day moving average, holding the 40-week moving average, and is just barely under the 65-week moving average, which some of our listeners may remember. There's a video that we put out about that number of months ago.
And that to me is a key point, because you, again, see from a macro standpoint, stepping away, looking at the long-term charts rather than just focusing week to week. In a week that has been relatively flat, it's good for us to step back and look at those and say, look, we are getting a lot of support in the price of gold. Silver to gold has been relatively the same, minor fluctuations in the ratio. But platinum and palladium, we're finally starting to see platinum outperform palladium just a bit. You know, there was a 4% difference between the two. Now there's a 6% difference. We've screamed from the rooftops, get out of palladium into platinum. And yet, 2 weeks, it's just a slight difference.
Yeah, we mentioned this last week. I mean, with palladium 10-12% away from its all-time highs and platinum 130+% away from its all-time highs. I don't know about you, but I'd rather double my money than just add a tiny little bit on top. So if you're still sitting in palladium, or if you're not in either of the industrial metals, the industrial precious metals, give us a buzz. Need to have a chat about adding some platinum to your portfolio.
With the manipulation in the gold price, there is a similar thread in the YouTube comments, as well as from our listeners calling in, as well as our clients talking with us about the gold manipulation one day potentially stopping. It's not going to. I think you've had manipulation with gold going back 4,000 or 5,000 years in the history of gold being money.
Yeah, the idea that we're looking or waiting for some fantasy event where all of a sudden the free market just takes over and the powers that be no longer have any control whatsoever, or the idea that gold can't go up until the manipulations end, that's not true at all. Gold markets, all things, they move regardless of manipulation, because the reality is you can manipulate whatever you want, but there are times where just the collective strength of the market can overpower just about anything.
You'll never see the CFTC come in and put an end to it. They've had many opportunities, and they fail to do so, and they turn a blind eye. So what about the other markets? I mean, in terms of stock markets, has there been any more action in the equities than there has been in the precious metals this week?
Well, the Dow keeps bumping up a little bit at a time, although one thing I did go back and kind of map out over the last 10-15 years is just the idea of divergence against some of the indicators. If you look at the price of the Dow Jones rise over the last 7 months, you have real aggressive divergence down against the relative strength index.
I like this divergence, Miles. I like it.
So what I went back and I said, okay, when was the last time we saw something like this? Well, in 2015, we had a 7-month divergence, which I'll throw on the chart, and a 17% correction followed. And if you listen last week, I talked about how I think we could see as much as a 17% correction in the price of the Dow coming up. Go back a couple years prior to that, 2011, 7 months of divergence, 18% correction. And then obviously we all remember this one, go back to 2007. We actually extended that a little further, 12 straight months of divergence against the relative strength index, and in 55% correction.
Is that why you like it, Robert? Is that why you're saying that?
Yeah, because it's a good indicator that the divergence is showing we're going to see a correction coming. And we're in 7 months of a divergence right now. The most recent that Miles was looking at was in 2007, where we had 12 months of divergence. And then we were followed by a 55% correction in the equities market.
Yeah, the 2007 correction is definitely worth emphasizing. And I think that brings us back to our discussion about manipulation. They can do these things on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. But again, the reality is the power of the market in general trumps all when it decides to.
Bill King from the King Report, to your guys' point, quote, prudent investors and traders should hear the bell that is ringing, unquote. That's today.
I'm going to come back around to that idea of listening to a bell towards the end of this show.
Good. I'm anxious to hear it. And that, we've had Yellen commenting. She refuses to offset some of the hawkish comments that are being said out there. She said yesterday, though, that there will not be another financial crisis in our lifetime. And, maybe she's older than we think, or she expects to die soon. But,
that
between that.
Foolish of a comment. I mean, is it that you should never say always and never?
That's right.
It blows my mind that someone
whether it's likely or unlikely or anything else, it's truly indicative of a bias, in her viewpoint. But that combined with the GOP delay of a vote on health care, we did see a market drop yesterday, and that's to be expected on all that news. But the transports, Miles made a good case showing how transports were lagging the industrials and what an indication that is on an economic downturn. But they've actually tried to come back.
Yeah, the transports have come back up a little bit. They are at a few different technical levels from a few different viewpoints. So I'm actually not going to say much except watch and wait over the next couple days. Certainly by next week, they should give us a clear example as to where they're going.
Jumping into the currencies, the U.S. dollar hit a 7-month low today. It's below that 96.5 level that we talked about, which was the fib level. And it is still possible, I think, where we could see the dollar rally from here and the euro sell off. I think the euro is kind of hitting a resistance point on the high side, ready to sell off possibly. But the dollar is breaking down below that strong fib level of 96.5.
And some of that is just on that hawkish talk from Draghi saying
Correct.
that they will be debating a rate rise in the coming months. And so they're sort of front and center from a central bank standpoint this week. And geopolitically, what needs to be said, treacherous is a good summation word, really. And, I was thinking the other day, technically we're in a de facto world war. If you look at Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Syria, Libya, Egypt, Israel in the middle of it all, the United States and Russia, right? China and Japan, North Korea, South Korea. There's really not much of a region that isn't impacted right now on war games without there being an official declaration. But the tension's there. The thumb on the spring of potential energy of conflict erupting is something that you all need to have your ears open to.
For those of you that are fans of increasing socialism here in the United States, I highly recommend you take a look at Venezuela over the last couple years, which, as we would say, is a raging dumpster fire of disaster right now.
Dumpster fire.
How about 750% inflation right now, on its way to 2,000 this year? So enjoy that. And it is sad. There literally are people starving and food lines and all the rest. And this isn't Weimar Germany. This is 2017 Venezuela. What about recommendations this week as we wrap it up, guys?
Yeah, Tori mentioned Bill King's comment about ringing bells, that prudent investors should pay attention to those. And while I was away, I was down at the beach, and in our condo complex, the fire alarm went off at 1 a.m. And so when I wake up to it, I thought it was weather, as well as almost everybody in the rest of the condo complex did, because the night before, as we were going to sleep, we were getting cell phone messages about flood warnings and tornado warnings. So when I wake up to the fire alarm going off at 1 a.m., I was confused, didn't know whether I should get out of the building. The alarm was actually instructing people to go out downstairs, get out of the building. Well, if it's truly a tornado, I don't want to be outside. If it's flood, I don't want to be downstairs and outside. So I sat there for a little bit extra time. When everybody finally went outside, everybody was looking around as if we were going to get hit by a tornado or be flooded out of here. So I guess the point of this is that there is an assumption that we make that we know something is going to happen. And I really warn against making assumptions about the market and what the market's going to do. Let the markets tell the story. Yeah.
I agree, Robert, but what was wrong with the condo complex?
It wasn't truly the fire alarm going off. There was no fire. However, there were families, people with children, who didn't leave their condos, floors up in the condo complex, because they assumed that it was tornado warning or or not a fire warning. So had it actually been a fire, they would have been in a fatal situation in an inner room, maybe in the tub or the closet. And so they assumed that they knew better than the alarm going off. The alarm today is going off in the markets, telling us things. And if you're going to just assume that you know better, that's a bad idea.
So it's a boy who cried wolf scenario. You know, it's better to pay attention to a few wrong signals than end up missing the one you should have listened to.
Correct. And someone later told me that in the other building next to us, it had gone off the week before twice in one night. So the first one, people left the building. The next one, people didn't. Again, it could be a real fire. It could be that we're, running on steam and exhausting this stock market rally. The market ends on the high side by exhaustion. And are we at that point? We're definitely close to it. So it could be that we're there, could not. It could go a little higher, but markets end with exhaustion and we might be there. So listen to that alarm.
Great advice. Great advice. So wrapping up this week on Golden Rule Radio, thanks, Robert and Miles. Good to have you back again, Robert. Send us your questions. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at ICA Gold and subscribe to us on YouTube by clicking the subscribe button below this video. We always welcome a call at 800-525-9556 so that we can walk through your individual portfolio.
Thanks for listening.
Tune in next week.